Hey guys, welcome into Jewel School, and I'm Laura Graham, and I'm so happy to be here with you guys. Glad you're here with me too. So we're making a bracelet. It's just we're making a really simple rosary style bracelet with alternating our crosses and our Aventurine, but we're also going to make a charm. Kind of mimics the shape of the cross bead that you can use for a necklace. You can dangle it. I'm going to dangle it from the clasp on our bracelet. But if you wanted to make a necklace with a focal point, you can make this little charm guy, and it's super easy. We're going to use our flat nose pliers where there's no measuring. It's going to be really easy. Y'all are going to love it. So that's what we're going to do today. Tool wise, I got a bunch of tools out here. This is kind of like a tool heavy demo, I guess. We've got our chain nose and our round nose, and then our flat nose pliers. These are going to be really important for making our charm. And then I've got my one-step loopers and my flush cutters. For our wires, we are using 18 gauge to make our charm, and then we're using 20 gauge to make our rosary bracelet. We've got our hammers, we've got our rawhide mallet and our chasing hammer, and then we have got a bench block to do some hammering on. So it's gonna be a fun little demo for you guys. Let's get started. First thing, we'll work on our bracelet. First thing, this is going to be another one of those demos that where I'm going to talk about streamlining our process, because anytime I do anything rosary style, I have to work really hard to streamline it and get it kind of in very much an assembly line process so that I don't lose my mind and I don't quit halfway through. Usually I can get through a bracelet pretty easy, but I used to make like really long rosary style necklaces, and I had to have it so like a well-oiled machine or I was never going to finish it. I had to make it as easy as possible on myself. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today while we're making our bracelet. So I didn't have any eye pins, so I'm just going to make my own eye pins. And if you don't have eye pins, you don't need them. You can just make your own. So we're just going to cut ourselves some pieces of 20 gauge wire here. Just going to do a couple, but just imagine everything that we do times like 10 or 15, depending on what you're going to make. So we're going to do all these steps, you know, multiple times in a row so that we can make this really easy for us. So next thing we're going to do, we're going to make all of our bottom loops on our segments of our rosary chain. So I'm going to grab my one-step looper here, and I'm just going to make loops. Okay, so next thing I'm gonna string myself a couple of beads. I'm gonna do 2 Aventurine, and then I'm gonna do 2 cross beads here. So we're gonna drop those on. And then we're gonna come back with our one-step looper here. Just give that a squeeze. And see, I'm not even setting down my tool, so I don't have to worry about losing it. I'm getting kind of, you know, in the groove with it, and especially if you're doing more than like what I'm doing for this demo, then you can really get in a groove and start working pretty quickly through these little processes. All right, so next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in with my chain nose pliers, and I'm gonna open up one end of all of my little segments that I just made. That's going to make it easier for us to attach them all to each other. So I will grab my chain nose pliers and we'll go in just on one end. It doesn't matter which one. And we're just going to pry that end open like that and set it down. Grab another one, pry it open and set it down. Just same thing with the Aventurine. Like this. And now we're going to assemble them together. So I'm gonna grab my Aventurine, I'm gonna hook it to the bottom, the closed loop on one of my crosses, and then I'm gonna close that loop up. And then see, I've got an open loop up here ready to go. I'm gonna grab an Aventurine and I'm gonna hook that open loop to my closed loop on my Aventurine. Close that off. Same thing, I've got an open loop ready to go. I'm gonna hook it on my closed loop of my cross, close it, and move on to the next one. Oh, here we go, okay. There we go, close that off. And now we are ready to, I kind of made myself like a little segment so y'all don't have to watch me make this whole thing so many times. But y'all see how fast that went, you know, once we got to the point where we were assembling them together. It goes really quickly and you can really make a necklace, a bracelet, whatever you're making really quickly. And look how cool those look all together like that in an alternating pattern. And again, it's all really nice. It all feels really nice. I love it. I love both of these together. And so then I'm gonna take this Aventurine off on the back. This is something I forgot to do this part with you guys. So we're gonna make our loop on one end. So I've got that off to the side. I'm gonna grab myself another piece of 20 gauge wire here and we're gonna make a big loop because we're gonna need something to hook our clasp onto on the other end. So I've got one end that I'm gonna use the one-step looper for, same as before. And then I will drop my Aventurine on and then we are going to grab our round nose pliers and we're gonna make a bigger loop on that one end so that we can attach our clasp. So we have something like big that we can attach our clasp to and our charm to. And I'm gonna make a closed loop here because there's gonna be, you know, there's a lot of pull and a lot of tension that happens on this loop because you're hooking a clasp onto it and we've got the weight of the charm that's going to be dangling off of that. So I want to really secure this by doing a closed loop there. So I did the little wraps down towards the Aventurine and that just closes it off and gives it a little extra security so that I don't have to worry about my loop coming undone while I'm wearing my bracelet. And then we'll just clip that end off there, tuck my tail. And then I just want to make sure my loop is nice and straight up and down. Okay, so then we are going to open this bottom loop up and then I'm going to attach it to my bracelet right there. Like that. So that's one end of my bracelet. And then we'll go to this end right here. And we're just gonna open that up and we're gonna drop a lobster claw on there. And then close that off. So we've got our lobster claw. And then we would just come around here, hook it right on there. Easy peasy. So you can leave it at that, or you can make this charm with me. So we're gonna make a charm that mimics the shape and the style of these crosses, and it's going to be really easy. So we're going to use 18 gauge wire to do this because I want to do a little hammering and kind of flatten it out a little bit, add some texture to it if we want. So I'm just going to cut myself a couple inches here of my wire, and then we're going to go in, like I said, we're going to use our flat nose pliers for this, and this is kind of going to be our measuring stick, the width of this plier, so we don't have to do any measuring at all. We just have to use our plier. So I'm going to go down here in the middle and we're going to start here. I'm going to fold up both of these up into a box shape like this. Then I'm going to come around on one of the corners, bend out. See how I'm just using the width of my plier here, so I really don't have to think about it that much. But one thing we want to make sure that we're doing is keeping our wire straight. We don't want any like wiggly jellyfish looking wires. We just want to keep them nice and straight and keep our corners nice and straight. So make sure that as you're doing this, you're just like keeping an eye on that. So we're just going to continue to make these 90-degree angles here. And then we're gonna come around this way. All right, so we've got like 1/2 of our cross made here. And now we are going to do the other side of it. Same thing, we're just using the width of our plier to make our cross shape. And then we're gonna come this way. See, it's really easy. You don't even have to think about it because we are just using we're letting our plier do the thinking for us. And now that we have gotten to this point, again, we're gonna crisscross our wires right here. So using the width of your plier, fold these towards each other like this. Just make sure you like all your angles and everything's looking like it's lining up right, like that. And now we're gonna switch to our chain nose pliers, and I'm gonna grab just one of these right in the middle and point that upward like that. So we've got one just sticking straight up, and then we're gonna use this one and we're gonna come around that wire that we just bent upwards. Just a couple times. It's pretty sturdy because it's our it's 18 gauge wire, so I don't need to wrap like too much. Just gonna make sure that I don't get my cross shape deformed at all. And then we will just trim this off a little bit with our flush cutters, like this. Tuck my tail there, and then we are ready to hammer this guy out and we're gonna flatten it with our rawhide mallet, and then we are gonna we're gonna even it out with our rawhide mallet, and then we're gonna really flatten it and add some texture with our chasing hammer. So I've got my bench block here and my piece, my charm, and then we're gonna work with our rawhide mallet. So I'm just gonna give it a couple taps. I'm not gonna do a lot with my rawhide mallet. I just wanna flatten it out from both sides. Making sure, again, that we're staying away from that coil up there. So I really am just butting this up to the edge of my bench block. I don't wanna hammer that coil at all, or I'm gonna deform the coil and it's gonna look real wonky, and it's gonna be really hard to kind of reshape with our pliers. So then we've got our chasing hammer, and we're gonna use like what we call the tuba end of the chasing hammer. So that's the flared outside of it. It's got the flat bottom on it. And we are gonna use that to really flatten this guy out. And then we're gonna use the pin side to add a little texture if we want. You can keep it flat or you can add texture. I'm gonna add texture to this one because our bead has a little texture, but I'm gonna do some flattening first. So we're gonna move back on our hammer. So we're gonna hold it kind of at the ball. You got this like ball end on your hammer there. That's where we're gonna hold it. We're gonna use our finger to really stabilize our hammer strikes. And we're gonna come in pretty hard with our chasing hammer. Keeping that end of your chasing hammer as flat on your bench block as possible. The more you choke up on it, the harder it is to hammer flat. So you don't want to be up here with your hammer because chances are you're going to come down at an angle. You want to be back here on the end of your hammer. It allows you to hit really flat. If you hit at an angle on your hammer, you're going to make a dent in your piece, and that is going to create can create a weak spot, especially if you don't have texture anywhere else. You don't have any like divots or pits anywhere else. You don't want one little dent in there because your hammer didn't come down flat on your piece. So stay back here and use your shoulder and your elbow really to do your hammering. And then I'll turn it over and we'll hammer from the back side. Getting it nice and flat. And then I'm gonna add a little texture. So I'm gonna flip my hammer over and we're gonna use the pin end. And I'm just gonna give myself a little bit of texture, not too much. And then I'm gonna use my mallet again just to really flatten this guy out. And that's not gonna mess up my texture at all using the mallet. So just make sure that you get it nice and flat again at the end with your mallet when you're done adding texture to your metal. Isn't that cool? Looks just like our bead, right? I think it matches pretty nicely. I think it's a fun little addition. So then we're just gonna make a little loop up here at the top. So we're gonna grab our round nose pliers here and make a little loop. I'm not gonna close this loop off. I'm just gonna leave it open so that we can attach it really easily. So I've got a loop going there, and then I am going to just trim this excess off. And then we've got an open loop that we can attach wherever we want. So you can do it as a charm on a necklace. So I'm just gonna add this to the end of my bracelet here. Like this. And then you got a little charm on your bracelet, a big charm, medium-sized charm, like that. I obviously am a big fan of crosses. All over me today. And you could even dangle some aventurine with it if you wanted to make a little cluster. We can do a little cluster. So let's see, let's grab a little piece of our 20 gauge wire here. And then I'm just gonna make myself a little head pin. Obviously, if you have a head pin, just use the head pin, but I didn't bring one with me today. So I just make a little curly Q on the bottom of my wire, and then I'm gonna drop an aventurine down there. Aventurine, there's not a D in it, aventurine. That's hard for me to say. I wanna say adventure. Okay, so then we're just gonna make a loop up here at the top. You can use your one-step looper. And then we will add this to our little charm cluster as well. You can add a couple, you can do just one. Whatever your heart desires. I would do a couple. Looks a little lonely. Looks a little lonely up there, but y'all can decide what you want to do. Anyways, thought it was a fun way to combine our crosses and our aventurine. Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed today's demo. If you need any of the tools and supplies that we used today, check out the links in the description below. And while you're down there, I want to know what your favorite charm is on your charm bracelet. Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss any future videos. Bye y'all.